Hi, my name is Mike Dillard, and a week after I graduated from college at the age of 22, I piled up all of my belongings into a U-Haul trailer and I hitched it up to my red Chevy pickup truck, and I said goodbye to my parents and I began a long 2-day drive to California. I didn't know where I was going to live, I didn't know how I was going to pay my rent, I just knew that I had a dream and an opportunity. And the dream was to become an entrepreneur, and the opportunity was to work with a gentleman named Stu. And Stu and I had actually never met in person before, and Skype and YouTube and Facebook didn't exist at the time, so I really had no idea what he looked like. All I did know was that he had an amazing family and he was making over $50,000 a month in his business. And on top of that, he was willing to mentor me. So I took a chance and I drove to California. The only place that I could afford at that time was this worn down apartment complex in Temecula, and Stu lived in San Diego. My rent was about $300 a month, and I had a bed, my desk from college, and a little whiteboard, kind of like this one here. And the day that I moved in, I wrote down a goal on that whiteboard that would prove to be one of the biggest self-fulfilling prophecies of my life, and also one of the biggest mistakes. And it was actually just 6 words long, and I'm going to share that with you here in just a minute. But as a result of these words, I went on to build my first $1 million company by the age of 27, which has since produced more than $25 million in revenue. In 2010, I started a financial publishing company called the Elevation Group, which is really designed to teach entrepreneurs how to protect their assets and then create generational wealth so that they can have an amazing impact on the world. And without a single dollar from outside funding or investors, the Elevation Group acquired over 8,600 paying customers and did $3.2 million in revenue in its first 7 days in business. And within 12 months, it would go on to produce 8 figures in revenue. So since I put really this plan into action, over 1 million people from more than 60 different countries have subscribed to my email newsletter list, and my companies have gone on to make over $50 million in revenue. So today, my goal is to help entrepreneurs just like you to build your business, build your wealth, and really live your dream, which is what this is all about. So over the next 7 days, I'm going to share some of the most valuable lessons that I've learned as an entrepreneur with you. And I'll just say this right now, your current skill level at this point in time is completely irrelevant. So if you're just starting out with your own business for the very first time, that's totally okay. In the beginning of the series here, I'm actually going to teach you what it takes to go from just an idea and starting from scratch to building your first 7-figure business. And then in the coming days, the second half of the series, we're going to move into more advanced wealth building strategies that will be extremely important for those of you who are already making 7 or 8 figures from your business right now. As for this video today and this material right here, our goal is pretty simple. I want to make sure that you set the right goal for your life and your business from the very beginning, which is the only way that you're actually going to get the results that you want when you reach your destination. So this is a pretty basic timeline, and we're just going to call that your career. So obviously this is where you're starting out today. This is your end goal or your destination. But unfortunately, I've noticed that most entrepreneurs are focused on the wrong end goal, which was the same mistake that I made. And the worst part is that you're not going to know that you made that mistake until you actually get to the end and you realize that, crap, I've messed this up. So once again, this is where you're at today, and this is where you want to end up. And usually for most people, this is a financial goal, especially when you're first starting out. Everyone kind of has their dream number in mind. And when I first started my career as an entrepreneur, that dream goal for me in California that day was $50,000 per month. And that's actually what it was. So this is what I wrote down. Almost 15 years ago now. So why $50,000? Well, that's what my mentor Stu was making at the time, so I knew it was possible. It was a real number for me. And it was really a number that lit my imagination on fire. I remember thinking that if I could ever make $50,000 per month, I'd have it made. I could do absolutely anything that I wanted in life. And while I'm sure you have your ultimate number in mind, you probably have another one, especially if you're just starting out, that's a more urgent priority for you, which is this one right here in the middle. And this is what you would need to make each month from your business in order to replace your current income and quit your job. So If you're making $10,000 a month at work, obviously your first goal with your business is usually going to be to make $10,000 from your business so that you can fire your boss and go full time. So what's wrong with this approach? I mean, it seems pretty straightforward and reasonable. Well, you know where you are here today, you know where you want to end up, you know what your middle goal is. Well, the devil is actually in the details, and I'll just share my experience with you real quick. It took me about 6 years to reach my dream goal of $50,000 per month. About 5 of those years were spent figuring out everything that didn't work, and then once I did figure out what did work, it took me about 18 months to go from waiting tables to making my first 7 figures. Within a year or two after that, I wasn't just making $50,000 a month. In fact, I went on to make over $500,000 per month. And as you can see here, this is an image of an old tax return from that business, which shows it produced $6.2 million in revenue. So you're probably thinking to yourself, well, Mike, you've got a business that's making $500,000 a month. What's the problem? Well, the problem is that I mistook the ability to generate revenue or income for financial freedom. And at the time, I defined financial freedom in my head as $50,000 per month. That was my big goal. But in reality, that wasn't financial freedom. So I've since learned what that actually means. And today it has a different meaning. It means that I have the ability to replace my active income with passive income from investments and other assets, which completely frees up my time. It gives me actual financial freedom, which means my money is basically working for me instead of me working for my money. But I didn't realize that mistake until just a couple of years ago. And in fact, the more money that I made back then, the further I actually moved away from real financial freedom as I proceeded to increase my lifestyle to reflect my business success. I bought a new Aston Martin, a 6,000 square foot house, a $100,000 boat. I hired employees, I rented an office, and I really increased my monthly living expenses from $5,000 a month to more than $50,000 a month. And in order to sustain that, I was now working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. So in reality, I ended up with the complete opposite of financial freedom. I ended up a slave to my lifestyle. So here's the lesson that I want you to take away from this. Be very, very careful when it comes to defining your goal. And in fact, this applies to every aspect of your life. So for example, I have a friend of mine named Sarah. She just got engaged. And several times I've heard her say, you know, Mike, I can't wait to have kids, or I can't wait to have a child, which sounds great. If you want a child, I mean, obviously that's a great thing to say and to want. But what I pointed out to her was that saying, I can't wait to have kids is actually very, very different than saying, I can't wait to have a family. One statement assumes her husband's going to be in the picture, and the other one does not. And as for your business, there's absolutely nothing wrong with setting an income goal, but realize that reaching your income goal is not the finish line. And in fact, that's the halfway point. All right, this is financial freedom, and that's where you've got to end up. So if I could start all over again, I wouldn't define my goal as making $50,000 a month. I would have defined it as making $50,000 per month from passive cash flow assets. And if that had been my definition of success, I would have made some very, very different decisions and saved myself from making some very, very big and expensive mistakes. So what I want you to do right now is to sit down and to really think very carefully about the way you've defined your goals, the words you're using, your language patterns, and make sure that you're not making the same kind of mistake I did by putting assumptions into this goal and assuming that if you get this, you know, if you get A, you're going to get B, because that's not going to be the case. Be very, very specific about what you want at the end of the process. So next, in video number 2, we're actually going to move on to one of the most common questions that I get, which is, you know, Mike, what happened during that 18-month period that allowed you to go from dead broke and waiting tables to making 7 figures? Well, I'm going to tell you step by step, and what I did is going to be directly applicable to you, no matter what industry you're in or what kind of business you're trying to build. This is one of the most valuable lessons that I can possibly share with you, so keep an eye on your inbox. Make sure that you whitelist my email address, mike@mikedillard.com, so it doesn't end up in your spam folder. And if you got some value from today's video and a little light bulb went off or you had a little epiphany, please feel free to share this with your friends and colleagues so they can benefit from it as well. So thanks again. I'll see you tomorrow in part number 2.